right, welcome back to Post-Workout Chats with Coach Marco. I'm here with Megan Sloan, and this is episode number 3. Megan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Megan. I am a run coach. I've been coaching running for about 7 years now. I've been in the endurance community myself for probably, I was in 6th grade when I first started actually running and putting in miles, and I kind of never looked back. I am a triathlete, so I do swim, bike, run. I actually have an event coming up in the next 10 days. I'm doing a half Ironman in Frankfort, Michigan. And then in the first weekend of October, I'm going to Muncie, Indiana, and I will be doing a full Ironman in Muncie, Indiana.
That's so awesome. And you're mid-training for that?
Yes, right now is kind of the heat of the training right now. It's
actually, matter of fact, you're off of a run just now, right?
I just got done post-run, fresh out of the shower. So this is about as clean as I get all summer right here.
Awesome. Actually, I think I had met you once before. Mm-hmm. And someone I work with at Orange Theory takes my classes, Corey Allison. Mm-hmm. She is someone that works with you.
Yes,
and she, I saw her this last Sunday, and post-workout, she told me to ask you about how you met her husband.
Yeah.
She wanted that to be. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And you want to tell that story?
Do you know that story?
I don't know it. She just told me ask her.
Okay.
So
before COVID, winter of 2020, before March, I was a 5-day-a-week swimmer. So I would be at the gym by 5 a.m., in the pool by 5:10. Wow. But then the pool shut down and I had to find, something else to do. And I wasn't someone that was staying at home to work. I was still going to work. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of changed gears and I would start running every day before I would actually go to work, when the world was shut down.
Right.
So every day I would leave my house about 5:30 and I would cross paths with this guy, and it's clearly dark out. And I had just started my run about 5:30 in the morning, and this guy clearly looked like he had been out running for a long time, mm-hmm. quite a long time. And at first I really didn't think too much about it. I would run occasionally with a friend, and I kept asking him, this guy, I swear he's been out for hours already, and it's literally 5 in the morning. How long has he been running, right?
Yeah.
So it finally hit me. I told my husband, I was like, if someone like this is out running as much as he is, I bet he's on Strava. Strava is essentially like the social media of endurance, endurance fun type of thing. So I went on Strava and I searched my flybys. There's a feature where you can search your flybys. If you cross paths or if you pass somebody, you can search.
I've heard of that, but I've never known. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so you can search that feature. Very creepy. I fully admit this is very creepy. But I thought, you know what? I'm just going to give it a shot. And sure enough, I found a guy and it was him. And I started kind of watching how much this guy ran. And he never ran less than 10 miles a day and he never took a day off. And on the weekends, he would hit 20 to 25 miles a day each day. Wow. And I was like crazy impressed, and I was also waiting for this man to crumble because who can keep up that kind of mileage, right? Mm-hmm. So we started chatting back and forth on the app, and I was essentially questioning his sanity and why do you do this? What's going on? And then in the fall, I started a cross-country season when the world would not allow junior high athletes to have a cross-country season. I was able to create that for junior high athletes with my now boss. He joined, or his son joined the program, and mm-hmm. that's how we first met, actually. And so it's really weird. It's very creepy. He does live in my neighborhood. I swear to God, I wasn't actually being like a true creeper, but I could just tell by looking at this man in the dark that he had been out running for quite a while. And sure enough, he would leave his house every day, anywhere between 3:30 and 4 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. And I was right. So if I was wrong, I would have said, yes, definitely creepy, but I was right. So
so I think it's good to have yourself surrounded by people you feel like have like a similar drive or mm-hmm. interest as you.
Yes.
Right. So, that's...
Yeah. And so I've spent a lot of time, they're actually pretty good friends now.
Right.
Throughout, all of quarantine, we've been able to kind of spend some time together, a lot of miles we've shared together. We've been running together now since then. And I kind of got a little bit more of an understanding as to why he does what he does. Personally, I would never do it, but I'm understanding it a little bit more. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I understand the drive and the struggle to find an endpoint, and he hasn't found that yet. So, mm-hmm. Like I said, personally, something I would never do, but I love to hear other people's stories, and something like his story, it's another conversation for another day. It's a big one.
Well, let's go into more like your story.
Okay.
So kind of not start to finish like like your whole life, but
Yeah.
but as it comes to like running, your passion for it, and then now kind of where you're at, you have a new certification and all that stuff. So maybe
So
go
I
through
started running when I was in junior high.
Okay.
I was born in central Illinois in the middle of nowhere, USA. And I was a gymnast. My parents put me in gymnastics pretty much right before I could walk. And I was a gymnast forever. And then we moved up to the Chicago suburbs, and I struggled to find a gymnastics gym that I really liked and that kind of stuck with me. So I finally just quit it. I was like, I'm done. I was only 10 or 11 at the time, but I also was not used to coming home from school and not having anything to do. Yeah. So I would tell my mom, all right, this is my route, and I'm going to go run. But I also, came from farm towns, so she made me promise that was my route. And so I had to promise her that was my half-mile radius or whatever, and I would do that loop as many times as I could before I was done for the day.
And that was before you had a cell phone so she could track you.
Oh, gosh, yeah. There was no cell phones. No cell,
Exactly.
And every time I did my one lap, I had to come back in the house and tell Mom that I was back. So it was some days it would be 2 laps, other days it would be 3. You just never knew how.
So my parents usually are like, I got to give them something to do, and you were like the complete opposite.
That's what I did, and that's essentially how I started running. I was in 5th grade.
Pause you. Central Illinois. What exactly is your town?
I was in a small town just west of Peoria called Brimfield.
Brimfield. Okay. Because I know some people from like Taylorville. And,
oh yeah, I've heard of Taylorville.
Because I went to school at Southern Illinois, so I'm a little bit familiar with some of these like Central Illinois.
Yeah, we're a bit north though.
Yeah.
From there. Yeah. So.
Anyway, go ahead.
No, that's okay. And so that's how I started running, and then I joined the cross country track team in junior high. High school, I primarily was track. I did a few other sports as well. When I went to college, that's when I started actually running the longer miles. I don't want to say I did it because I liked to do other things, but I needed a way to keep the weight off in college, I guess you could say. So I ran longer miles, and that's when I actually started racing some longer distances. I did my first half and my first full marathon in college. I trained for them while I was in school. So. Cool. So yeah, I finished my first marathon 2 weeks before I graduated college, and it was kind of fun because I got to finish it on my home turf. I finished it at the University of Illinois on the 50-yard line of our football stadium. So that was kind of fun.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah. So after I graduated, I started working right away, and I never really stopped running. I continued racing for quite a while, and then it was a couple years after college. I had some friends from the gym that convinced me I needed to buy a bike so that I could do different workouts with them. So I bought my first road bike. Reluctantly, I wasn't really a big fan of it, but I did it. Went on some rides with them. They convinced me that I should sign up for my first triathlon. And I was somebody that, I had known of the Ironman sport and the distance. So I thought to myself, well, if I ever do that, I'm kind of going to, I have to go big or go home. I'm going to do the whole thing. So I signed up for my first sprint just to make sure I could do it. And then the next day I was trying to find out how I could sign up for my first full Ironman. And within a few months I signed up, and I didn't even own bike shoes. Yeah. So I had to do a lot of research in less than a year and a lot of investments, and I figured it out. And within a year I finished my first full Ironman.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Like training for an Ironman, obviously we know like what parts are in the Ironman, but sort of like walk us through the journey of training for it.
Oh, it is. It's something I never really anticipated. I kind of went into it extremely blind, very, very naive, not really knowing what I was getting into. One workout a day does not suffice. That's for sure. You have morning and afternoon workouts. If you can squeeze them both in the morning, all the power to you. If you can't, then just get ready to work out after work as well. Typically, you have about 3 to 4 swims a week. I would say about the same amount of bikes and the same amount of runs. They might all, differ depending week to week. But then you will always have a longer bike and a longer run on the weekends. So either get used to super early weekend wake up so that way you can still do the rest of life with your friends and family, or, get used to just not really having any sort of life other than swim, bike, run is what I
Right,
like to tell
yeah.
people. So when I trained for my first, I was, determined to not really give up the rest of my life. So I saw a lot of 4 a.m. mornings on Saturdays and Sundays, so that way I could still do the rest of whatever, my life had planned for me on the weekends with my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, any friends and family that I could. So I was determined to kind of squeeze it all in, and I did. It was very difficult, but the more you do it, I definitely say the easier it gets, for sure.
Yeah. And when you're doing it, so when you program it out, what are the points in which you ramp up? And
So you want to definitely have some sort of a base. Everyone is different when it comes to base building. How much time and how much time you have under your belt, for sure. It differs for everybody. But usually I would say about a 12 to 16 week program is best. And then you kind of do the increments. You do the builds in like sets of 3. So you do 3-week builds. So by that 3rd week, you have some significantly high mileage or distance. And then, then you go down that 4th week, you kind of dip down again, and then you slowly ramp up again every 3 weeks until you hit that taper. So it's different for everybody, but that's typically the trend.
And what would be your advice for someone thinking about doing it? Maybe they're on the fence.
So if it's been something they've definitely thought about a lot and they've really wanted to for a long time, just do it. Just dive right in. That's what I did. I don't really know any different, so I can't really speak to it. But if I will tell you, it is not a cheap sport. I was not really prepared for that. But I did everything I could to make sure I could make it happen, because once I was in, and I wanted to do it so badly. So I found a way to make it work. You cut corners where you have to, but finances are huge when it comes to triathlon. So make sure you can squeeze that. You don't have to have the fanciest bike. You don't have to have all the newest gear. You can do it with anything that you have. You can do it with a bike from eBay or wherever you find anything that any equipment that you have, you can find it. It doesn't have to be super expensive. You can make it your own. So if it's something you want to do, you can do it without all the big monetary costs.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good point there. And kind of going back to running, I guess. You said you're working with someone now, and you want to go into that?
Oh, yeah. So last year when the world shut down, kids were not given, any sort of athletics at all at schools. So the IESA canceled all sports. I'm sorry. That included cross country. So at the time, I had a physical therapist that I was working with for a couple different injuries, and she is also a runner herself. She's a running technique specialist, and we kind of put our heads together and came up with a way to offer a group of local kids, a cross country season. Her and I were, not working together at the time. I would leave my office and run over to her office and put on this cross country season for kids. We started this in the fall. And it grew to a point that we really didn't truly anticipate. And by the end of the year, I gave notice to my then employer, because she was ready for me to come into her office full time to start coaching.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, like I said, we really didn't truly grasp what was ahead of us, but I could not have been happier with how it played out. So,
And can you go into like sort of things you go through with maybe training kids, developing like running skills, going through gait?
Yeah, so kids are probably the easiest to coach. Kids are sponges. They soak up all the information you can give them, and the younger the better. The youngest I've worked with is actually the age of 4. I don't highly recommend that age. Typically a little older is best. 6, 7 years old might even be ideal. They don't truly know the proper way to run. They run around the yard, they run around with their friends, but they don't know the proper way to run. Typically when you are entered into a sport as a kid, whether it be baseball or football, there's a lot of technique and form that is taught to those children. In the sport of running, you're just given a pair of shoes and told to go. So if I can grab a child at a very young age and teach them the proper way to run, it could actually instill this lifelong love of this fabulous sport that obviously I love so much, that it could instill that in them. Because if I do it properly, you could reduce the risk of injury by quite a bit. Usually injury is one of the biggest reasons runners take a back seat to it, and they just throw their running shoes in the closet and they collect dust.
Yep.
So if I can instill that into them in a very young age and teach them the proper ways without them actually truly grasping that that's what I'm doing with them, then that's how I go to bed happy at night.
Right. And I've worked with kids, but in a sort of different way, because when you get them to run and you train them to run, it's for endurance. It's for longer stretches.
It is, yes, but you don't want to necessarily have a 7-year-old out running miles and miles at a time.
Right, but the form that you teach them is for that.
Yes, the form is huge. Regardless of how fast or how slow you run, the form is the same. That is 100%. No matter how fast or slow, it's always going to be the exact same. So if I can get them used to what it feels like to run proper, or to run correctly, they will do that whether they're jogging or whether they're sprinting down the street with their friends. So that's the ultimate goal.
So it would be them, because when I train someone, usually it's for their sprint capability, which is the same.
It is the exact same.
So okay.
Yep. 100%.
Okay.
Everyone goes through what we call the running pose, whether you are running slow or you're sprinting. So everyone has to go through that pose. And the quicker we can get you in and out of that pose, essentially the shortest amount of time you spend with your foot on the ground, the lesser of a chance you have of injury. So that is the ultimate goal. So that's what I try and teach my kids.
Can you describe the pose and maybe like the muscles involved, the muscles you'd strengthen if this is something you wanted to develop?
So like if you were to go to a running store, maybe even like the Nike store, typically you would see these mannequins, all right, and you know they have these huge long strides. Okay, typically that front leg is way out in front of them, that back leg is way stretched, and their arms are like way out, like this. Okay, they look like a muscle man. That's typically not the best pose at all. Okay, the best pose actually almost kind of looks somewhat like a flamingo. Just imagine one foot on the ground and the other foot just bent up directly with that foot underneath you. That is the running pose. The quicker we can get you in and out of that pose, the faster the more efficient you're going to be, the faster you're going to be, and the less chance of injury you have. So that is our ultimate goal. And every runner does that, whether they run fast or slow. So companies like Nike and shoe companies, they kind of depict the wrong image when it comes to proper run form. But ultimately their end game is to sell more shoes. So if they injure you and tell you that it's because of your shoes, they're going to make more money.
Yeah, because when you see someone like sprinting out of the gate, you picture someone like leaning with a very high hip flexion.
So I'm glad you said that. Leaning is huge. We call it falling. Okay, we want you to fall into your stride. Okay, so you don't necessarily want to lean into your run. We don't want any sort of flexion in that hip. We want you truly falling into the stride. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
So the more we can get you used to that, I teach my runners, you're not going to fall on your face. Your front leg will catch you. All right. Half of the reason we do lean and bend at the waist is because we're fearful of falling. So if I can teach my runners that, with different drills and different things that we do, if I can teach them that, then they have a better chance of actually truly falling forward into that stride when they're running.
Okay. Yeah. I think this is kind of like where I can kind of segue into this article that I pulled up. Okay. And I wanted to talk about it.
Okay.
The article is off active.com and it's by Mackenzie Lobby, and she talks about the article itself is named "Why Some Runners Quit and Others Become Lifelong Devotees." And within the article, it talks about sort of like a motivational psychology, and it's called determination theory. And she talks about intrinsic motivation, and psychologists that studied this concluded that intrinsic motivation could only be harnessed if a person feels these three things, which are competence, relatedness, and autonomy. And let's go through them one at a time, and I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on them. You won't be motivated to run if you trip over your own feet or bust a lung every time you step out of the door. This isn't about a speed or pace, but rather mastering the skills necessary to feel like you're a competent runner. What are your thoughts on that first one?
So I kind of definitely agree with that. That kind of goes back to teaching kids how to run at a young age. We're not truly taught how to run. A lot of runners these days start in adulthood, whether it be because they're unhappy with their weight or they just need a new goal to strive for. And they've not been running before. So when they take those first couple steps out the door, typically they're very, very fatigued and tired, and they're out of breath very quickly. And those are all normal things. Even if you do know how to run properly, it's still going to happen to you. So part of it is going to be a mental game. You have to get yourself over that mental hump. You're not going to be the best at anything you try, whether it's running or, volleyball, whatever it is. You're not going to be the best at it the first time you try it. So you have to get over that mental hump. But if you know that you're doing everything properly and you're continually improving with every step that you take, mentally that will be easier for them to continue.
Yeah, I mean, any sport or physical activity can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you're used to like the extremes of it.
Yes.
Over time.
I always say that the endurance world is all about learning how to be, learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right. But that goes along with like anything.
It really does. It's kind of the biggest motto I have in life, especially the past 18 months.
Right.
You have to really be ready to be uncomfortable, just like get used to it, because that's kind of life.
And that's why I pulled up this article, because I read it and I thought it translates to this specific topic, but it also translates to a lot of things, right? Mastering your skills to feel competent, fill in the blank, right? That's kind of like how it goes. And then the next point was relatedness. If you don't feel some sense of belonging, finding that internal drive to run can be difficult. Even if you prefer to run on your own, feeling like a part of a greater running community is important. And we kind of touched on that, but...
Yeah, so I definitely agree with that. I actually also work at Lifetime Fitness. I am their run club coordinator over there. And I've had many of our members who who run with us on a weekly basis tell me that the main reason that they've stuck with it for as long as they have is because they know that they have the group to meet up with every Saturday morning. We've met up every Saturday morning for years. Even through COVID, we met when the gym shut down. We would still find a way for all of us to get together and meet on a street corner, and we would run. So if you have that sense of belonging, if you know that someone is there waiting for you, it just makes it that much easier. So my advice would be, if you are struggling, go to your local running store, go to your local gym, see what groups are out there for you to join. Typically, most stores and groups like that will have they'll have group runs that cater to all paces, whether you are a 12-minute miler or a 7-minute miler. They'll typically have something there for everybody.
And the last point was autonomy. You need to know that going out for a run is a choice. If someone is forcing you to hit the road, it's going to be difficult to cultivate intrinsic motivations to run. Like, intrinsic meaning like the passion for running.
Yeah. So I definitely agree with that. I also work with a bunch of middle school children all summer long. We do a cross-country prep course called the Zephyrs program. And one of our biggest mottos in the Zephyrs program, it's not what you have to do, it's what you get to do. Okay.
Right.
You get to go outside and run every single day. All of the kids I worked with all summer long, they made a choice. They got up every morning at 6 a.m. and they were at practice by 7:30, ready to go when all of their friends were sleeping in. And they're all starting cross country this week at school, probably in much better shape than those teammates who slept in all summer. So I definitely agree with that, 100%.
Yeah. And it goes on to talk about extrinsic motivations are important in the beginning. Their example was an extrinsic reward of wearing the Boston Marathon jacket, achieving a qualifying time, and getting to run the Boston Marathon challenges many runners to shoot for times they may not have dreamed of. So this is like some goals, right? But then you develop intrinsic motivation on that journey. Yeah. That's how you start, but then you can develop that.
There was one specific student that I worked with, and her mother was extremely worried about her daughter joining because her daughter had never done any sort of running before, but she wanted to be involved in something, but she thought this would be good for her. So, she was worried that it was going to be all the rest of the kids would be too fast for her, and that she wouldn't fit in, she wouldn't make friends, and she would get, she wouldn't be motivated to come back. And I promised her, I said, you know what, we'll work with her, we'll do the best we can. And easily, without doubt, from week 1 to week 9, she was our most improved athlete, 100%, because she was willing to put the work in. She knew she wanted to be there. She wanted to be a part of something. And she listened to what we told her. We made sure that all the different paces, all the different kids were running their proper paces. So we didn't have them all sprinting when they shouldn't have been sprinting. We worked with them all, and she made such leaps and bounds. It was crazy to watch her. She could barely get through a half mile that first day, and by the end she ran, I believe it was close to 3 miles without stopping. So we were really, really proud of her.
Yeah, that's always the best part when you see that improvement in somebody else. It's even more motivating for you too.
Oh, for
personally.
sure. I've had many conversations with her on the side just to let her know that we were very, very proud of her, because I could tell she was much more shy and reserved.
Yeah.
So I wanted her to know that, coming out for this camp was a really good decision, because she was going to do well in cross country this year. And she was definitely, she wasn't even going to be the last one to cross the finish line, even though she probably thought she would be. She definitely wouldn't be. So.
And so you encourage a lot of people that, because running can be something like, I like to do it on my own. It's something I like to do to reflect, or just have something that I do by myself.
Right.
And a lot of, I think the personalities can be more shy or willing to just only do something for them. But you would encourage someone to find others to run with, or just you're not even, maybe not doing a marathon, but finding others to share the experience with.
Oh yeah, for sure. Runners, endurance athletes as a whole are very odd, quirky people. When we all know it, we all fully, admit it and own it up. But when you look at us as a group, you are going to have a huge, huge, wide variety of personalities, but we all have that one common quirk. Some of my dearest friends that I run with on a daily basis are 10 to 15 years older than me, and some are even much older than that. So I truly believe that the runner's heart knows no age.
Yeah.
So
That's good. I like that.
thanks. Don't let your fears and doubts hold you back. Don't be that person that sits on the sidelines, always thinking and wishing, maybe I should do this. Maybe one day I will. You're never going to get those days back. You're never going to get those moments back. Just do it. And if it's miserable, then maybe the next day it won't be. You never know until you at least give it a shot and try it out. And if you want to get better at it, give me a call. I can help you.
And that's a good way to end. Where can people find you?
So I actually am a run coach over at Smith Physical Therapy and Running Academy.
Okay.
We are located downtown Crystal Lake on Woodstock Street, right next to the police station. You can give the office a call. They can get you in touch with me. Yeah, you can find me online. I am on Instagram, Meg Sloan 14.
Okay.
Facebook, I feel like Instagram might be a little bit easier. I am on Facebook as Megan Sloan, but I feel like you're going to find 25 Megan Sloans.
Right.
And if you go to the Smith Physical Therapy and Running Academy website, I'm actually listed on there as well. So there's plenty of ways to reach out to me. I do even have a blog as well. I typically go through, life, racing, endeavors and such. It's on Medium. You can find me on Medium under Meg Sloan 14 as well.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. It was great.
All right.